you doing out there? I was just messing around, showing you a few things, kind of just making something up right there on the spot. Okay, now, sometimes when you really feel creative, you want to just take something ordinary, maybe a simple chord progression, and you want to do something creative with it to try to make it sound extraordinary or something unique. Okay, you might have remembered a song that was very popular some years ago that had a very successful career off a very simple, ordinary progression. It sounded like this. Okay, so we all know that as the Sting classic or the Police classic, Every Breath You Take. Okay, but if you really took a second to listen to that chord progression, it's really nothing more than an A chord going to an F sharp chord, going to a D, and an E chord. Okay, how ordinary is that? That's just 1, 6, 4, 5. Okay, in the diatonic key of A. Okay, but what made it unique and captivating and a big record for the Police is obviously are a number of things. We have the great singing of Sting. Okay, a very compelling singing voice. And you have a very interesting lyric on top of that, a haunting sort of lyric treatment over the top of that. But you have the great production of the recording itself, and a lot of that has to do with Andy Summers' guitar parts. In this case, the muted add 9 chords that Andy used. Now, I mean, we've studied some of these add 9 chords before, but I'm setting the lesson up to explain this to show you that sometimes you have to take something simple and make it interesting by the way you treat the chords. So Andy took a major chord and added the 9th to it, right there, and muted it with his right hand and just created an interesting percussive compressed sound with his guitar sound to kind of make it sound more mysterious. So that was a very calculated and very musical way of making an ordinary progression sound really interesting, and hence a huge record for the Police. So, you know, sometimes that's what you're faced with. You come across a situation where you want to write a song, or maybe you're writing songs with someone else, and they've got an ordinary progression, or maybe something that's not so unusual, but you have to dress it up. You have to find ways to make interesting things out of basic chords. So what I thought I would show that in this lesson. So what we've got here, a lot of things that you can do to dress up chords, or to just add intervals inside of chords, to add extra little melodies inside of the chord voice. So what I like to do sometimes is take an ordinary voicing of a G chord, right, or maybe a part of a G chord, and I kind of set my hands over the chord differently so I can open up and create a melody inside the chord. So I'll play the root with my thumb, and I'll play these 3 notes with a 4, 3, 2, and then I'll put my first finger on the A underneath the B here, so I can do this. Right? It's not that much different than doing the same thing in the open A position here, which I know we've covered in other lessons. Right? But I'm going to do it now with a bar chord. So that's what I wrote right here. The X is the note that I'm ultimately playing after I play this. So I play this first, and then I play the X after it. So I go this. Okay, so now we have a little bit of a melody inside of the chord. Right, and you can see even the way that I'm playing the chord is interesting. I'm kind of slapping the strings a little bit to add a little bit of a groove. I don't have to do that, but I just thought I'd point that out. Okay, so right away we're getting a vibe with the G chord, and all I've done is just add that inside of it. I could have done it even in open strings. I just decided to do it. Right, I could have done it with an open string, but I wanted to go up, not down. So that's what I chose. Okay? So now let's say we wanted to do something interesting with the D minor chord. Let's say that's my next progression, my next chord. Okay? Well, a really good way to create an interesting D minor chord is to just hammer on from the bar, in this case, of the 5th fret into a D minor, in this case, 7th. So I'm basically hammering on from the C triad over a D to create a little melody inside of this note and inside of this note. Right? So that's kind of cool. It's still D minor, but it's just, there's an internal voice happening. Or backwards. Like that. But that's kind of an interesting sound. So if I put those together now. Okay, and we're starting to hear an interesting treatment of just G major to D minor. All right? So let's see what would happen if we went to a C chord. Okay, there's the C chord. Maybe that's the next chord in my progression. Well, how about I want to create a melody again? Well, I could do literally the same thing that I did here and just move this whole thing up to C, but maybe I want to try it in the position I'm already in right here. So let's see if I just take this melody that I can create by adding the 9 here, instead of doing it here, I'm going to do it by applying this string, this string, this string, like this. And that's the 9th. And then I hammer on to the whole chord, creating a C major triad. So this is really C add 9 to C major. Okay? So now I have this. Too, that I'm using my fingers in this example. I find I have more control in my melodies with my finger picking style. Maybe do it like that. Kinds of flavors and varieties of what you can do with your right hand there. Okay, so that's kind of an interesting way. You can see my progression in the top. I've given you, that's pretty much what I'm doing on the first. I'm going to make this 4 times so you'll get lots of varieties of ways to play over it. Okay, now we go to our B section here, and we have an E minor chord now. After doing all this cool stuff, I don't want to just go to. Seems so boring now, doesn't it? Yawnsville. So what will we do to make the E minor interesting? Well, let's employ some interesting embellishments here. Let's just add, first of all, we know an E minor 7th would be an E minor triad with the 7th added. So I'm going to add the 7th not only right there. Oops, I found a mistake.